All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I have with me this morning our City Administrator, Chris Shorter, Director Mitchell from DPW, our Health Commissioner, Dr. Jaraza, Emergency Management Director, Chief Wallace, our Borough here, Chief of Water, Wastewater, Joseph Cabetta, and Marsha Deppen with the Maryland Department of Emergency Management. This morning, we have great news to share with you all. With the results that we received overnight Thursday, DPW has received clearance from MDE to lift the precautionary water boil advisory for residents, business, and other facilities in the impacted areas of West Baltimore. We have found no further evidence of contamination and can assure our residents that water is now safe to use throughout the small advisory area and the initial impact zone. The health and well-being of our residents is our top priority, and we will keep working diligently to determine the source of the contamination and monitor for illness in partnership with our local healthcare providers. Thankfully, we are now at this point, and we will continue to track the situation. As a part of our post-incident procedures, DPW will continue to inspect our water system and identify what went wrong. I am very proud and want to say very, very loudly of the efforts of our city employees, thankful to our state and regional partners from MDE, from the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, from all of our surrounding counties who have been here with us since we opened the Emergency Operations Center, and the business community who came to support our residents in Baltimore in this time of need, and community-based organizations and just regular citizens who worked in hand in hand, side by side, to make sure that we were providing clean water to residents during this deep time of need. I'll let Chief Wallace go into more detail about that in a second, but we will also continue to distribute water to impacted communities for a period of time. I want to remind our residents that we need them to properly flush their system before resuming water usage, and I reiterate that we understand what our communities have been going through, and in light of that, want to remind everyone that we are instituting a 25% discount citywide on water bills for the next billing cycle as we help to compensate residents for being without water and to help cover the cost of increased usage during flushing. And thank you, and now I will turn it over to Director Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor, and all city agencies for assisting with this. I want to say DPW proactively tests 90 locations throughout our city. And those locations, we proactively do it to identify any issues. As you know, September 2nd, we identified one location for positive E. coli. Over the last 3 days, we began to flush our system and tested over 100 locations within our city, and we've seen negative results. We want to just thank everyone for their hard work, MDE and Howard County and Waddell County, and all of our partners who help test. All these individuals are state certified testers, and our DPW Labs is a state certified lab, and they have been working tirelessly throughout the last 96 hours to test over 100 locations to ensure that the water is drinkable and quality water here for our residents. I do want to thank the residents for being very patient with us as we go through this process. We also want to again remind people to continue to flush their systems. We want them to turn on their cold water at all of their taps, flush their system for a minimum of 15 minutes. You want to start at the lowest point of your home and go high to the highest point of your home, and you want to ensure that you do that for at least 15 minutes. Again, I want to thank everyone. Going forward, we are looking at root cause. So our focus now within the Department of Public Works is look at root cause. Again, some of our key areas that we are looking at is our construction projects that are within the impact zone. We're looking at water main breaks that could have caused some things within that impact zone, as well as any valve repairs or adjustments. We also looked at the line that was coming from Ashburton Reservoir and we had tested in coordination with MDE 3 random sites. Those sites have all came back negative. So we are really focused on our effort, as we said in the beginning, the root cause within said impact zones. So we hope to continue that work, and definitely until we can nail down some parameters around how this was caused. But again, our team is working definitely hard, and we want to thank everybody for their effort. Again, thank you all.
Good morning. I'm Deputy Chief Wallace, Director of the Office of Emergency Management. I want to build upon and expand upon the Mayor's comments with regard to thanks to community groups, private partners, private sector, and just the average citizen who stepped up and really pitched in to help us get through this event. Our Emergency Operations Center is still active and will remain active until further notice. As Mayor Scott has said, this has been a truly collaborative effort from involving city, regional, and state agencies. I want to express my gratitude specifically to the following agencies and emergency management personnel within those agencies: the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, the Annapolis City Office of Emergency Management, the Anne Arundel County Office of Emergency Management, the Baltimore County Office of Emergency Management, the Harford County Office of Emergency Management, Howard County Office of Emergency Management, planners that we have in our EOC right now from the Montgomery County Office of Emergency Management, and planners that assisted us from the Baltimore Metropolitan Council. This was truly, in the emergency management realm, a collaborative effort that has occurred over the past few days. Staff from these agencies have worked daily, collaboratively, and will continue to work until this incident has been resolved. In addition, this planning staff has put together a plan that has managed water distribution at 3 sites throughout the 2 sites in the city and 1 in the county that, as of this morning at 9 o'clock, have distributed over 103,000 gallons of water. With the partial lift that's being announced this morning, we're going to shut down 2 sites at noon today. Those 2 water distribution sites that will be discontinued at noon today are the site at the Lansdowne Library and the site at Middle Branch Park. They will shut down at noon today. However, the Harlem Park Middle distribution site opened at 9 a.m. this morning and will stay open until 8 o'clock tonight. That site will reopen again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and will shut down at noon. I again want to stress how hard everyone has worked, both city agencies, our state partners, our private sector partners, and the citizens of Baltimore to help resolve this issue. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Earlier this week, I shared that there were 2 cases being investigated for potential E. coli infections. I want to reiterate that the most common cause of stomach bugs are actually viruses. Therefore, further examination is needed to determine if a patient's gastrointestinal or GI symptoms are caused by E. coli bacteria that normally occurs in our gut. So here's what we know so far about those 2 cases. The guardian of a minor self-reported that the minor had GI issues that began on August 30th, but had resolved by September 2nd. At this time, there is no conclusive link to the contaminated water, and in this case, the symptoms self-resolved, and to our knowledge, this minor was never tested for E. coli. The second individual is currently hospitalized for E. coli bacteremia, and their prognosis is improving. And in this case as well, we have not found a definitive link to contaminated water. As for everyone else that was under the boil water advisory, please follow DPW's guidance for flushing your water systems at your homes and businesses and empty all your ice trays. For the next few days, it is still necessary to be observant for possible symptoms because E. coli infections can present themselves up to 1 week after exposure. This means that exposures right before the advisory was lifted could present as GI issues next week. So I'd like to reiterate that healthy adults usually recover from infection with pathogenic E. coli within a week. Young children and older adults do have a greater risk of developing a life-threatening form of kidney failure if infected with pathogenic E. coli. Signs and symptoms of pathogenic E. coli usually begin 3 to 4 days after exposure, but can occur up to a week. Those signs and symptoms include the following: diarrhea, which may range from mild and watery to severe and bloody, stomach cramping, pain or tenderness, and or nausea and vomiting in some people. Please contact your doctor if you develop diarrhea that's persistent, severe, or bloody. And again, remember to discard all stored water, drinks, or ice that could have been contaminated. We will continue to monitor for further cases of water contamination and E. coli infection. But I'm also very grateful for the efforts of this group standing behind me and so many others that were able to keep the broader public safe. Thank you.
Thank you again. And just as we close, just around, this is a full lift of the advisory, and want to thank our residents, our businesses, our community who stepped up, our elected officials, and soon to be elected officials who have stepped up. Councilman Bullock, Senator Hayes, Delegate Ampry, everyone, Westmore, everyone who has stepped up, Councilman Costello, to help people get water. And with that, we will take questions. Sir? Oh, hold on one second.
Yeah, Scott Wyckoff from WBAL Radio. Moving forward, how concerned are you about how difficult it is to find the source of a contamination like this?
Yeah, I'll let Director Mitchell talk about the details of that. But what I'll say, Scott, is that this is why we have such a robust testing thing, because we want to make sure that our water is consistently tested. Just as a reminder for everyone, for your listeners, this was something that we caught as a part of our routine testing that we do to make sure that the water that we are sending out is safe for consumption.
No, I thank Mayor Scott, but I think he said that our robust, proactive testing protocols are there to ensure that our water quality is safe. We take 360 samples every month and within our entire distribution center, so that we understand, the hydraulics of our system and test key points so that we understand that our water that's going through those systems are within our limits. And so it's critical that we continue that work, and it's critical that we continue to do our root cause analysis so that we can make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Since this isn't a perfect science, potentially, I mean, could the search for the contamination end up maybe not finding it out? Just
It definitely could be inconclusive. And it could be a multiple of things that happen, right? A water main break. It could be a construction project that's outside of our utility. So it could be a hybrid of things, and we're going to do our best to look at the science and look at the data and try to figure out a conclusion.
Yeah, I think they do that to you on purpose, I think.
I know, it's ridiculous. But my apologies if this is a bit redundant, but can you please explain, maybe this is a question for Director Mitchell too, how, if we don't know the cause, we know that it's not continuing contamination, and we know that there's no chance that contamination could resume in the system if we don't know exactly where it came from?
Yeah, I'll start, and I'll say again that this is why we test, right? When you talk about we are following the protocols, again, we have to get clearance from MDE to do this. We have tested now not just that area, but across the whole system, and there have been no positive tests across the system as we go and test through this. This is why this is there. This is why we do it, why we have been following the protocols to the T, because that is what is laid out for us and how we can make sure that it's not continuing to happen.
And thank you. And as well, we monitor our water facilities. And so every hour, every 2 hours, we're monitoring the quality of chlorine, pH, and other things that's in our system to ensure that contaminants cannot exist. And so we do that on hourly and every 2 hours and assess our systems.
Yeah, I wanted to ask additionally about kind of restoring public trust after something like this. I mean, DPW is an agency that, we're having difficulties at the wastewater treatment plants. We're having difficulties picking up everybody's recycling on a weekly basis. And, now this. So can you talk about kind of trying to restore public trust after all this?
Yeah, this is about, and we've talked about this, this is about also now making sure that we're sharing this kind of information of testing and stuff on a more regular basis. We know when you talk about solid waste, for example, that issue is an issue that is the case in cities around the country, right? And we know that not just governments, but actually large companies. One of the first things that I asked Director Mitchell to do when we realized that we were struggling with this is a people issue when you talk about picking up recycling, was to call our private partners. And they said to us, we can't take any more routes because we have the same problem that we do. I think what we all need to do is understand that the world has changed, and we have to understand that this issue around worker shortage is impacting every single business or entity that is hiring people. There is no one safe from it. Not even the big bad NFL is safe from needing people to step up for jobs, and we're going to continue to provide service. I want folks to, again, understand how hard those women and men that work for DPW work when they're cleaning up your alleys, when they're picking up your trash, when they're picking up your recycling. And for folks who may be sitting at home and may be looking for a new line of work and want to help DPW restore trust, come restore it yourself with us. We're hiring. We want you to come. We want to bring people from the city. We want to get younger people involved in the agency because we know that this agency is one where people can live make long careers and make good money for their families.
Thank you.
Yep. Mackenzie?
The microphone is at my height. Thank you. Kind of going along that same lines, we know that the Department of Public Works has a massive budget in terms of agencies. It's a large department and it has a lot of different responsibilities.
Yeah.
But it seems to be that it's a department plagued with problems, perhaps mismanaged. And I know that a lot of people we've talked to say that they want to see some sort of accountability when it comes to how this, especially this situation, was handled. Communication seemed to be bungled. How do you plan to make sure that the community sees that someone is held accountable for this?
So again, Mackenzie, there was no misbundling of communication. You weren't here the other day, but we laid that out, that we follow the protocol of how you communicate and how you have to, MD has to say to DPW, yes, you can say this at this time. That was followed. We're going to follow every rule and every regulation. And when you're talking about an issue like this, again, this wasn't something that DPW mismanaged. They found out the water had this in it because they did the testing. This wasn't someone else telling us. This was DPW having the systems in place to say, we're going to make sure that our water is going out safely, consistently, over and over and over again. And that's how we caught this. And that's how we brought all our regional partners in and our state partners in. And that's why we've been working in constant communication with everyone around the region about how this issue was going on and how we were going to resolve it. When you're talking, we know that these kind of things unfortunately happen. It happens all across the country, but the way that they handle it was within regulation, within code, and we're going to continue to make sure that we improve on the great work that they were doing. That's what comes after this. How can we make what happened, if and this happens again, how can we improve and be better than we were the first time? And that's what we do each and every day.
So you're satisfied with how the situation was handled top to bottom from everyone involved?
So I haven't even had a chance to breathe yet, Mackenzie. You should ask me that question in about 2 or 3 days as I go back and do analysis of myself, because as you know, I'm an athlete. I'm going to critique every single detail, including everything that I did or said. And we have protocols for after action things on things like that so that we make sure that we're better the next time.
I'll hold you to that in 2 to 3 days.
2 to 3 days.
Okay, and just one more question.
Just don't ask me when the Ravens are playing on Sunday.
I can promise I won't do that. The majority of our viewers have said that they don't believe that you are equipped to handle a crisis like this. How do you respond to that criticism? I
don't respond to unscientific polls, period.
What if they're your constituents?
Can you tell me who they are? They're unscientific polls. What I say is I've handled many crises, and I handle them with dignity and respect. I don't get shaken. I don't get stirred. I'm sturdy. Growing up in Baltimore, living what I had to live through, having guns pointed at my face, have prepared me from crises that people who do not live in this city and may be clicking a button over and over again on your voting poll do not and will not ever understand. Fern?
Hey, Mr. Mayor.
Good to see you, ma'am.
Nice to see you. I just wanted to go back to the concept of lifting the boil water advisory without knowing the source. Can you or somebody explain maybe from a technical point of view, how you're saying testing is the reason. How can testing really reliably tell us that it's okay to drink this water now?
Yeah.
When we don't know the source. What's the principle of this testing?
Yep, I'll let Director Mitchell again go through the testing and just remind everyone that we have to get approval from MDE before we were able to do this. And based on our testing, based on the protocols that are laid out, we have been given a clear to do this because this is how these things work and what the systems work. And I'll let Director Mitchell go into detail about the testing, where we've been doing the testing, how the testing is representative of what's in the system.
No, thank you. We follow a protocol from the Environmental Protection Agency. This is not something that DPW has created. This is a system and a process that we follow and that every other water utility in this country follow. And so we make sure that we follow those best practices in any emergency responses that we do. Again, we test over 90 locations every week within our system to look at our flows, to look at chlorine levels and other levels, and we follow the science. And what we know through completing over 100 tests within the last 3 days is that the water that's flowing within our entire distribution center is meeting expectations, as well as the water that is coming from our water treatment plants are performing at a very high level. And so we're following the rules and guidelines and the science that comes from the Environmental Protection Agency.
Will you guys be continuing additional rigorous testing, like more rigorous than normal, in the days after this? Like, will that kind of schedule be continuing?
Yes, so we will begin to go through our testing, our weekly and daily testing, starting today, to begin to continue to test our system and monitor our system for performance. We will also work with MDE to see if we want to readjust some of our testing locations so that we can be stronger in our analysis. And that's what we'll be doing with some of our root cause analysis and hot wash after said event.
Director Mitchell has talked about possible causes or things you're looking into, but I'm wanting to know, have you been able to narrow down the possible causes at all in the last couple of days?
So yes, we have narrowed it down. So it's not our water treatment plant that has and is operating fully. We also know it's not in the larger distribution area. It has shrunk. Our focus is in the small box that you see on the map. We started in that box and we continue to say the focus is there. What we see, as I even drove the impacted area, there's been a lot of construction in that location. We had 2 water main breaks in that location. We had to do a valve repair in that location. And so we're looking at those events and looking at the data that we have to begin to find that root cause.
So there's specific construction events, water main breaks in that near that impacted area that are sort of leading candidates right now. Is that kind of a fair way to look at it?
All those things that we said are leading candidates, and so we just continue to do the resource until we find out, the root cause. Again, it may not be one, smoking gun, if you will. It may be multiple things that are happening, and so we just will let the science and the data lead us to that conclusion.
One more for the mayor. I think a lot of people have wondered why this happened in the neighborhood where it happened, a part of the city that's not necessarily equipped to deal with these types of issues on its own, and where sewage overflows have happened in the recent past. Does the city have any perspective on, is it just kind of bad luck or bad coincidence that it happened in the neighborhood where it happened, or is there a more systemic cause there?
This is not something that is like it happened here because, right? This is something that just happens, right? As you heard Dr. D say, these things just happen. And we know having it happen in that area just made it more complicated, right? But if you drive through there, you will see a lot of construction, utility construction, things that are happening there. You heard about the water main breaks, and it just exacerbated the situation where it's unfortunate when it happens anywhere, but having it happen in a neighborhood like that just makes the situation worse, which is why it was so important, and I'm so appreciative of how the whole city came to rally around that neighborhood, right? We were out there, Director Mitchell and myself were out there early this week on Riggs Avenue giving out water. We were in St. James Terrace yesterday, going floor to floor, helping our seniors and those who couldn't come downstairs to get their water, receive their water. We know, but I think what's also important, and we talked about this one of these days, I think Sunday or Monday, that this also shows again the importance of what we now hope is going to happen with the president's infrastructure bill, and cities, not just Baltimore, but around the country, being able to start to really deeply address this aging infrastructure.
Apologies if this is redundant, but is the city confident, based on what it knows right now, that this is not something that's going to happen again in the near future, or is it too soon to say that?
Well, I would never say that, period, right? You would never say that, right? Because you can't, you can't control it. I can't control something happening with a construction project, or we don't know when a water main break is going to happen. We just know that we have to continue. This is why we do the testing. This is why we have the protocols and things that we have in place, because things happen. I hope and pray that it never happens again, but we just have to be ready if it does.
One last technical question for Director Mitchell, if I could. Wondering if you could just say a little bit more about the communications with MDE and what the kind of step-by-step process is that's required there for communicating with MDE.
Yes, so when we, on September 2nd, Friday, September 2nd, so when we have our first negative, we have to immediately inform MDE that we have a negative and complete a resample of the site. Then once we resample the site, we have to inform them of the results, whether they were positive or negative. And then after that, since we had a second confirmed negative, we have 24 hours to report and communicate out to the public. And we met and exceeded those standards. It also explicitly say that you have to use one form of communication to the public. We chose to further that, meaning we chose radio, we chose television, we have boots on the ground, we send email communications, we went out on social media. We wanted to get this out to our public as quick as possible so that we can reduce the impacts that E. coli could have to one. Again, our job is to protect the health and safety of our public. We take that extremely serious, but we also must follow the rules and guidelines that's stipulated to us.
Sorry, on that, in terms of the timeline and the responsibilities, did MDE tell you or the department on Sunday to take action, and then did that happen?
We had conversations with MD all the way up until Sunday, late night. And in those discussions, we knew we had to take action. It wasn't whether MDE was forcing us to take action. Per our rules and regulations, once we have the second negative result, we have to take action. Our communication with the MDE is how and what to make sure that we get to communicate it out as quick as possible, but also as wide as possible.
Did they give you the okay on Sunday, though?
They gave us the okay Sunday night, and we immediately began through midnight. Our team worked throughout that entire evening and that morning to create a message. One of the things that you have to do after emergency, you have to understand the impacted area, create a message, also give instructions about what we're going to do around water, and really build an entire infrastructure. We are able to build that infrastructure within hours of that conversation.
So it's safe to say that MDE told you guys to take action Sunday night, and then we didn't get the message until Monday?
No, again, they work with MDE through the Sunday night and through the night about what was going to happen and when it was going to happen, how it was going to happen. Again, nothing that DPW has done has been out of step with MDE. And it's not MDE directing, it's about them saying, yes, you can do it in this way, in this fashion. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep, thank you.